What's going on, guys? And welcome back to the Edison Club podcast. This podcast. Oh no! Let me try that again. What's going on, guys? And welcome back to the Edison Club podcast. I'm your host, Mike, joined by my brand new co-host, Austin Butcher. And today I'm kind of just bringing you a recap of YCS Indianapolis, everything that went on, how my experience was, and kind of how I think about the event now. My previous co-host, Justin, has currently stepped away from the team and stepped away from Edison to primarily focus on advanced formats. So Austin's going to be taking the lead as co-host for the foreseeable future. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this thing. YCS Indy was last weekend. It was a lot of fun. We left out on Friday morning. I went with my friend Glenn, my friend Steven, friend Justin, Sasha, and Adam. We had a really good time. It's about an 8.5-hour drive from North Carolina to there. And we have a really good ride up there. We get there on Friday. We immediately go hit up the venue. This was probably the nicest venue I've ever been to for a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. Everything was super clean. All the workers there were very friendly, which is something I'm definitely not used to here in North Carolina. Most of the time when we do something at like the Raleigh Convention Center, the workers kind of walk around with like a scowl on their face. And all these people, they were so happy. Definitely the largest convention center I've ever been in. You could very easily get turned around, get lost in there if you didn't keep up with where you were going. But we get there on Friday. And I'm going around. I have a few cards on my checklist I want to pick up. I want to pick up a QCR Charge and Light Brigade, QCR MST, QCR Foolish Burial. And I'm going around, and they start to put up the prize cards, the giant cards for all the side events. My eye is immediately drawn to one of them, which is Judgment Dragon. And it turns out that that is the one for Ultimate Time Wizard. So in my head, I'm just like, man, the last time that it was a Light Sworn card, I topped. So I was like, I've got to run this back. I've got to at least get a chance at this Judgment Dragon and kind of redeem myself from Richmond. Definitely still have nightmares about my loss in top 4 of Richmond. I've wanted to run it back. I've wanted to get there so bad. And Judgment Dragon definitely gave me the motivation to do so. So Friday, kind of just do a little bit of testing, a little bit of playing, and kind of just take it easy. Saturday morning, we wake up, have some killer breakfast at the hotel restaurant. Probably the best French toast I think that I have ever had from anywhere. It was actually incredible. So from there, we head back to the venue. I get in a few test games with Sasha before, and we had a really weird game, and I was afraid it was kind of setting the tone for the event in a way. I was testing, so I played the new Pure Lightsworn list that Jay Cook from Team Little Man YGO played. And this is a Pure Lightsworn deck that main decks triple Pot of Avarice as its only Judgment Dragon recursion. And I really didn't test a lot with this deck. I kind of just went in blind. I tried to submit my previous deck list a few days before the Avarice list came out. It did not take my deck list. It did not submit. So I took that as a sign that I needed to be on the Avarice list, considering Pure Lightsworn topped for the first time in forever the very next day. So I roll with that. I change a few things in the side deck. Nothing really too crazy about the main deck. I decide to main deck MST as a 41st card. And this game I play against Sasha, I actually resolve Celestia, JD, Triple Avarice, and Dust Shoot and lose, which was so crazy that the game went on for that long. And he was playing Hero Frog, so I'm not sure what exactly went wrong, but I was like, oh man, like, does this deck just do a lot to do nothing? So, and then I was like, no, I'm not going to get in my head. You know, like, whatever happens, happens. I think it's a good deck. So I sit down for round 1, and round 1 jitters are always a big thing with me, especially with these events, because you never really know what to expect. Like, when we get there, they tell us to come line up for check-in. And everyone is like, oh my God, they told us there was not a check-in. You know, why are we lining up? So we all go over to the check-in line, and I'm standing there with Tom Mack and some of his friends and waiting. And we've stood there for like 15 minutes and the line has never moved at this point. So I'm like, literally, what is going on? Like, here we go again, So I'm looking around because whenever I go to these things, I just know that generally they're just not ran well and they're different every time. So I'm like looking down the line. I'm like kind of like checking people off mentally. So like there's this guy, there's this guy, there's this guy, trying to make sure like everyone that I know that's going to the event is like on the up and up, because I don't want anyone to like get dropped round one, them just like not be there. So the only person I don't see is Frazier, and he's pretty easy to point out. He's always got his drip on. He definitely is like the nicest dressed person at a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. So I text him and I'm like, hey, there's a check-in line. Don't know if you're here, where you're at. You might be in line, but he wasn't. I don't know where he was. So he walked over and he gets in line. So I'm checking again. I'm like, I think everyone is here that I know is here. So, and then they walk down with a camera and they film everybody that's standing in this long check-in line. And then they immediately go post round one.
Wow.
So we did not check in. I think that all they did was line us up to take a video, and that was just how they got us over there. So they post round one after we've stood there and waited like 20 minutes. The line never moves. There's no check-in. There's nothing. So I go sit down for round one. And I'll play against a guy who's really, really chill. He's really cool. He's a really big dude with a cowboy hat. Like, this guy, I don't know. He did not look like a Yu-Gi-Oh player, if you know what I mean. So we sit down and he's playing zombies, but not only is he just playing regular like Diva zombies, he's main decking Zombie World, which to me, on pure Lightsworn, it doesn't really affect anything, or so I thought that it didn't really affect anything. So game one, he just has like really crazy hands. Game one, like Goblin Zombie into like Zombie World, followed like by Plague, Zombie Master, Dark Armed. And when those dark decks see like their broken hands, Allure, Dark Armed, Return, Burial, there's really nothing you can do. So he beats me game one. Game two, I beat him. We get to game three. And we get to a situation where basically I have an I have an Arcus on the field with a Threatening Roar. And I'm like, this is a really good spot to be in. This is like pretty golden, honestly. But he has one card in hand. He draws, summons Dark Armed, pops my T-Roar, which I chain. And I'm like, I'm golden. I have Celestia in my hand. This is great. Then he activates Zombie World. And if you didn't know, Zombie World has an additional effect where it turns everything on field engrave into zombies, but also prevents you from tribute summoning for anything that's not a zombie. So in Edison format, all you can tribute summon for is Dark Dust Spirit, basically. And I'm just like, wow. Wow. Why is that so specific to this exact situation? So he gets me round one, and I can't be mad because it's such a specific way to lose. And it was a good match, like that's all I'll say. It was a good match. It was a very specific way to lose. But after our game, I'm opening up my packs, and I don't even remember what set it was. But I'm talking to the guy. I'm like, oh yeah, like what comes out of this set? He was like, oh, this is the set that Kashtira comes out of. And I was like, oh, okay, so like the deck that's like slaughtered on the ban list. And I was like, so you tell me I'm going to pull Starlight Arise Heart even though it's banned? I crack the next pack and it's a Starlight Rare Arise Heart, and I'm just like, what is going on? I literally just called that I was going to pull this card. So I pull a Starlight, but it's banned, but it's still like $90, so I still get 60 out of it. So like at this point, I'm just like, I got Zombie Worlded for game, but I pulled a $60 card. So like I'm happy regardless of how the rest of the day goes. So after that, I win the next 5 rounds straight. Play against like the Mirror Match, play against Amaryllis, Zombies again, Black Wings, Vayu, something else. It's on my tournament report video if you go and watch that. But I win the next 5 rounds straight, which to me was a crazy feeling because I'm like, I have not really played with this list at all. I'm not familiar with it. I have not played Pure Lightsworn in probably close to a year now. I've been on Christiasworn ever since. And none of my opponents were bad. They were all of average skill level or higher. And I could just tell, like, by the way they played, like their mannerisms and like their accessories, like, their sleeves and their spell grounds, calculator cases, all that. Like, I did not have any wins that were free. They were all very good players. So at this point, I'm just like, this is crazy. I've won 5 rounds straight. And I just didn't believe that that could even be possible. So I get to round 7, I play against Diva Hero Beat. And for some reason, I think it's maybe just like a lack of testing against this deck. I always get beat by this deck. And I'm not sure what I do wrong specifically. But I win game 1. I have like heavy double JD. And there's not much you can do to that. Like if you don't have road judgment, the game just ends. Game 2, I get into a really awkward situation. So like my hand is like, this wasn't exactly what it was, but I know it was Plague Spreader and Necrogardna 100% for sure, and 4 other cards that were unplayable. So those could have been like Celestia, JD, Wolf, whatever. So he went first, he summons Alias and passes, so I just set Plague Spreader. He attacks it, goes to grave, he sets 1 and passes. He trap dust shoots me, puts back Cyber Dragon. I drew Cyber Dragon for turn. And I completely missed the line of summon Plague Spreader back from grave, normal Necro, and make Catastor. And his hand was all monsters. And Heavy Storm and MST. That was his whole hand. He had like Alias, Stratos, Ocean, MST, Heavy. So looking back on it now, if I make Catastor there, I can't say that I win that game, because who knows what he could draw. Like Miracle Fusion at some point, just kind of starts to get him back in the game. But I would have been in significantly better of a position than if I just set Necrogardna. So I go to game 3. And game 3, he drew Stratos and Future Fusion every game that we played, which was actually really crazy. Actually, I'm sorry. He didn't draw Future Fusion game 2, but he did draw Stratos all 3 games. So game 3, it's kind of back and forth, but he gets me to a point where I have like double JD in my hand, Heavy Storm. And I'm trying to decide, like, how can I live? Because like if I summon JD, he has AZs on the field, it dies automatically. So I'm trying to like figure out how to get the best, to do the best play to get through all of this. And unfortunately, he had like Deep Sea Diva. He either had Diva or he drew Diva, so he makes Brionic and he ends up killing me. But that was the first match of the day where I actually misplayed. And I think it was just because it was such a random interaction that like, you never stack for Plague, summon Necro, make Catastor. I don't think I've done that in 2 years, one time. But my run came to an end there, unfortunately, because these things are top 8. So if you're X2, there's pretty much no chance that you're going to make it unless you lose. Your second loss is like the last round to like someone that's really good, has good breakers or something. But I tried not to beat myself up too bad on it and just kind of learn from it. But I mean, it was definitely a victory to me to be able to take a deck that I really had no prior experience with. I didn't even make a side deck plan for this time, which is something that I never do. I always make a very detailed side deck plan. But this time I kind of just rolled with it. I feel like at this point I've gotten good enough to know how to side deck correctly without really needing to refer to a side deck plan. So, but yeah, I definitely wasn't upset over it for sure.
Man, it sounds like you had a good weekend. Really had I missed it with you guys. You already answered a ton of questions without me even asking them. But
just
I mean,
in like my little rundown thing, I kind of got to rambling. I apologize.
no, you're good, man. You already you knocked out a bunch of them, but yeah, I got ready to go. My first thing is do you feel like with each YCS that we've been to, do you think that it's getting better ran? Do you think the officiating is getting better? The way they organize is getting better?
I think so.
Versus Richmond, versus Raleigh, versus Indy. In your order, which one do you think was probably the best?
Okay, so let me kind of go off and explain these a little bit here. And it'll ultimately follow through to my answer. So Raleigh was like the first time I feel like people traveled to a YCS. This is Raleigh Nationals. So this is before you started playing. This is Raleigh Nationals last July. This is like the first time an abundance of people travel to a Nationals specifically for one side event. So naturally, there are going to be a lot of hiccups because it's Konami already. And, things are generally difficult for them to run correctly. I don't know if you ever heard some of the drama that was surrounded by that first one, but when we first got there, they actually announced that they were going to run it with modern erratas, and modern rulings. So meaning brain control only takes control of a normal summonable monster. Absolute Zero doesn't get its effect if it goes back to the extra deck. Future Fusion doesn't send till the next standby. That was how they were going to run it when they first made the announcement, because people were in shambles. And I'm just like over here, like thinking through my deck, like, okay, nothing in my deck matters. Actually, everything in my deck gets better because Raikou does not target with its new errata. They end up changing it because there's a lot of uproar, and notably so, people were very angry. There were like 50, 60 some odd people that were just going to drop from the event, myself included, because I just didn't want to play in a tournament that was ran with modern rules, modern erratas, because that's just simply not correct. So they end up fixing that. And the tournament is ran pretty decent, I suppose. It is only top 8, as all of these are top 8. But I mean, it's not awful, but it could have been done better. So then the next one that I went to was YCS Richmond. And this is like the first time they do like a check-in thing for Ultimate Time Wizard. So you had to check in either Friday or Saturday morning. I don't remember, but there was a check-in you had to go to. If you didn't go to it, they would drop you from the tournament. And that was something that they just added out of the blue. It was not in any of the information that was put out for the event at all. It was something they literally added the day before. Thankfully, once again, I just don't trust anything that like Konami does. So I'm there like anyway, checking to make sure. The rulings in Richmond, I feel like were done very well. I didn't really hear any ruling disputes in Richmond. But there brings the issue of the top 16 thing, where they said that it was going to be top 16 cut, round 1. Everyone heard it. All the judges were saying top 16. Ends up getting changed to top 8. There's a huge uproar. People are super mad. And respectfully so. I would have been the same way. If I was in 9th, I would have been very angry. Then we have Raleigh, and I think that Raleigh was actually ran very well. I didn't hear really any complaints about anything at Raleigh. I didn't hear any ruling complaints. I heard that there was like a few niche rulings, like a judge ruled that quick draw synchron does not activate, which in Edison format it does, but that is because that's the way it was ruled at the SJC. There's like not really anything that you can read on that card that would make you think that it activates, because it reads the same way as Swap Frog. So that was like the only bogus ruling I heard about at Raleigh. And then now we have YCS Indy, which has probably been the smoothest ran of all of them, besides like that weird check-in thing. So like apparently now there's like you don't have to go and check in for the side event or anything like that. And I actually heard from someone, I'm not going to say who, but they would probably know what they're talking about, that Konami rewrites their public events policies in the summer. So there is a high chance that next year with Ultimate Time Wizard, it will actually scale the same way the main event does. So like top 8, top 16, top 32, top 64, depending on attendance. So I know that's what a lot of people have been wanting, is for it to cut to top 16 or higher if they have the attendance. And I actually think that if they do that and they make it cut top 16, in scale, I actually think these will get significantly more players, because a lot of people don't want to like fly across the country to play in a side event where you have to get top 8 or there was no point in even showing up.
Nah, I completely agree with that. Leading on to that question, do you think that it's better that they're piggybacking off of YCS's for the Time Wizard events, or do you think it would be better if we just had our own event for the Time Wizard event?
You talking about like for Time Wizard to have like its own YCS?
Yeah, either its own YCS, its own regional, or even its own weekend, I guess. Like all it is only Time Wizard events. Do you think we would draw in more players? Do you think more people would want to be involved with it? Or do you think that, the way it's going right now is probably the future of Time Wizard? Just, kind of piggyback of YCSs and regionals and other small stuff.
As much as I would really like for there to be a Time Wizard actual YCS, I wonder sometimes about like just how profitable that actually is for Konami. Because like no one there is really going to buy any product. No one there is really there's not going to be any other side events, because most people that play Edison don't play the advanced format. Not all of them, but most of us play Edison, so we don't have to play advanced. So I do kind of just see Time Wizard piggybacking off of the main event, at least for a while. And it might eventually grow into something where, there's 500 players in the Ultimate Time Wizard tournament, because they're scaling it up to top 32 or top 64 or whatever. So I definitely think it's going to continue to grow, but I do think it's probably just going to be like leeching off of the main event for a while, just for the security, because they don't want to rent out like a whole venue for like an Ultimate Time Wizard YCS and then 200 people show up. It'd just be a big loss for them. But I do feel like, if it keeps growing and people keep showing up and the interest is there, anything would be possible.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I also think it's Konami's job, or at least their duty, if they're going to do these Ultimate Time Wizards, they need to promote it better. There needs to be, more involved for the Edison community, like Edison packs for entry, stuff that entices people, help the community grow, and just stuff like that. Like giving out, advanced player stuff for, entry and different stuff like that. I just,
Yes, I agree with
I
that
feel
as
like
well.
people away, like they just don't care. Because some people are there for the entry stuff. They know they're not going to top eight, but they're there to have a good time. They're there to play. And then, sometimes it's just the small stuff that adds up. Oh, there's only top eight. Oh, you only get advanced packs for, entering. Only top
Yeah.
three or top four get prizes in to start with. So I feel like just, the small stuff. If we would go top 16, maybe top eight guaranteed to get prizing. Whether it's
Yeah.
just max or everybody gets some kind of like jumbo size card of some sort of, just to like entice players. I feel like it's also Konami's duty and job to help grow this and promote it. Because if they don't, it's just destined to go nowhere other than where we're at right now.
I
We may,
agree.
and I think we have grown. In the short time that I've been back to play, if I remember right, I think Richmond was 113. I think Raleigh was 147, and then I've heard a number of 197 thrown around for Indy.
I think it was either 197 or 187.
So I mean, we're definitely going in the right direction. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
we can
agree with
continue.
you that I think that some kind of product specifically catered toward Time Wizard would really help. So like Time Wizard OTS packs where it's like they can reprint cards like Amaryllis and Trap Dust Shoot, Royal Oppression, all these cards that are just difficult to find, difficult to pick up. Then they can bump other cards into higher rarities, like Cold Wave is a super rare. Ultimate Rare Trap Dust Shoot would be insane. Ultimate Rare Substitute would be insane. All those cards, it would definitely entice people to play, and
Imagine it.
it would
Oh,
make it
sorry, go
feel
ahead.
like if you don't do well in the tournament, like at least you got cards you can use. Because I sold the Starlight Arise Heart and literally threw the rest in the trash because I couldn't do anything with them.
Well, I mean, imagine only getting like alternate art cards for Edison packs. Like it's an Edison only pack, and the only way to get it is to go to these Time Wizard events. That would
Yeah,
entice so. I mean, imagine having like a different art that nobody has card, or a different rarity that nobody has of an Edison card. I mean,
yeah,
the that would just like want to bring so many people in. Like people would love it. Same thing for
yeah.
like. I mean, I think we've all kind of talked about this before, but imagine if the Prizm was kind of customizable in a way. Like
Hmm.
instead of a jump card, it was like you got a Stratos and you got to design the artwork for the Stratos, and it was a
Yeah,
playable card or something like that, or just even top eight prize, where everybody's like gets some kind of form of a jumbo card. Obviously, getting bigger for the better placement. But I mean, I feel like we really need some help from Konami with this stuff. Konami is a multi-billion-dollar company, and I feel like sometimes they need to promote better, do a better job to help the players. Because us as a community, as an Edison community, we want to grow it. We want to see it get as big as advancement is.
oh yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with that 100%. And like improving on like the prizing and everything like that is definitely going to help out a lot.
So I'm really excited to see where this can go. Um, I think that Edison has a bright future. I was one of the ones who thought that how long is this really going to last? But I think it's here to stay. I really do.
I do too.
Um,
I do too, especially because like the giant Judgment Dragon sold for $6,000. That is more than you get for winning the main event. by a large margin. That is more than you get for winning the main event. And your deck cost a fraction of what a modern deck costs. Even if you build Amaryllis, right? So Amaryllis is kind of in a weird spot right now where Amaryllis is like $80 to $100 a piece. If you just bite the bullet and you spend $300 on 3 Amaryllis, the rest of your deck is like pennies, but you have those cards forever. They're never getting hit. They're never getting banned. It's probably never even getting reprinted by the way it looks right now. But you have your deck, and every time you top, every time you win, you're just getting the returns off of your initial investment. Where advanced format, it's like you spend $1,000, $1,500 to enter in, to buy a deck to enter into a tournament, and you just get a Nintendo Switch for topping it, and that's it.
And it's just the same to me. Like, I get that, not everybody likes the same thing, but why would you want to go down that road, I guess? I mean, at the end of the day, we're playing this game for fun, but we also play it because we want to do good. We want to win good prize, and, we want to be successful in some sort of way. So to know that all you get is a Switch or even a YCS prize card that might only sell for, I don't know what the new ones are selling for, but, $800 to $1,500 probably, like every other typical prize card. And a bunch of them are just, you can't do anything with them. Like, I don't know the name of it, but I'm pretty sure it's just a vanilla monster they give out right now, right?
Yeah. It's just a vanilla monster that I believe is specific to the event that you top. So it has like in its flavor text like awarded to like the top of YCS Indianapolis 2024.
So I mean, some people might like that, but I mean, when you talk about getting a Judgment Dragon or this vanilla card, to me it's a no-brainer. I mean, a $6,000 Judgment Dragon. Yeah, no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I agree 100%. Like, and I hope that it continues to grow. It's just a very good way to be able to enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! And in a way that's not like, if I don't open up a 1-card combo and 4 hand traps, I lose kind of thing. It's definitely, there's some cushion there.
So with that being said, if you could say just, I don't know, one sentence to try to draw in advanced players to Edison, what would you say?
If I could say one thing to advanced players to draw them into Edison, I know one thing, it's like advanced players, they want the prizing. And they want the prizing and they also want the glory. Because a lot of times you don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! For the prizing, right? Like everyone knows if you top a YCS, like you're getting a Nintendo Switch, right? Like I've heard stories of people that they've won so many Switches, they're actually out of room to store Nintendo Switches. But I think that Edison is a way that you can get both. You can get a $5,000 prize card if you win. And you can get like, the glory, the attention from topping or winning one of these things in the same way that you can get it from the main event. I would actually almost argue as well, the average player playing in the Time Wizard tournaments is better than the average player playing in the main event. Like I said, throughout that tournament run, I did not play anyone that was bad. I played people that were definitely better than others, but I didn't sit across the table from someone at any time and say, wow, this guy is so bad. Everyone, for the most part, understands the rulings. They understand the decks, what the best decks are, and I think you're just playing against generally just better players. And a lot of that too is like the reps. You get a lot more time to actually learn the decks, to learn the interactions, to learn the format. So I think it's just like the natural progression of like hard work is just going to eventually pay off.
No, I completely agree with that. I would say, whenever we go to these tournaments, 80% to 90% of the players are just really good. I mean, almost 4 years strong now of people playing Edison, and people are just getting better. It's a locked format. Once you know your rulings, like you said, it's just repetition. It's not like playing advanced. I mean, I ain't played advanced in many, many years, but back in the day, as long as you knew your rulings, you were golden. Because most of the players or regionals, maybe 40% of them might be good, and that might be a give or take number. Back in the day, it was so easy to top events, but you go to an Edison event now, and I mean, it's just a dog.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. It's very cutthroat. And the thing about it is too is like, even though like the competition is cutthroat, the community is still so chill. Like every player I played against was chill. Well, almost every player. I played against one guy that was a little sus, but I'm not going to talk about that too much right now. But they were all just chill. Like it's definitely a different vibe when you play like the Time Wizard formats. You can definitely tell people are there. They're there for the competition, but they're also there having a good time.
And that says a lot about the community. I mean, I completely agree with that. The Edison community is really chill. Usually, if you ever ask a question, everybody's just really nice and kind. I'm still in
Yes.
some of the formats on Facebook, and if you ask a question in there, a lot of times you're just going to get roasted. I
Yeah,
mean,
I've seen that very
a lot.
often. I can't. I
I mean,
can't
why
like
tear apart a community when you're supposed to be like building each?
yeah. I agree. Like I've seen it so many times, dude. Someone posts a ruling question and like some of the judge groups on Facebook, you can definitely tell the people in there, they're just trying to like assert their authority or assert their dominance. And I'm like, bro, I asked a question, just answer it. Like, and in like the Edison discords, you might ask a question and 15 people respond, and like if you have questions about their answer, they'll explain. And I think that it's just a much better vibe. Like obviously there's a few bad apples and everything, but it's anything that you do. It doesn't matter if it's Yu-Gi-Oh, if it's footballs, cars, whatever you do, there's some bad apples, but it's definitely a different vibe when you ask for ruling questions like within the Edison community versus like when you ask for ruling questions in like the modern community, for sure.
No, I completely agree with that. Even down to, like the goat community, they're all just so kind, and if you ask a question, they're usually right on it.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand. I mean, we all need to build each other up. Even down to like the Tengu community. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I'd ask questions, and there's a little bit of toxicity there, and I never understood why. I
Yeah.
don't know,
Me either.
just people are like you said wanting to assert their dominance or what it is, but I never understood it. But Goat community, Edison community, they're just so chill. Everybody's kind and genuine, and everybody just wants to
Yeah.
have a good time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like also too, this is the first event that I have been to where I have had easily over like 10, 12 people come up to me and want to talk to me, shake my hand, sit down, have a conversation, and tell me like how much they enjoy the content that I make, that we make. And I've had like a few people here and there at events do that, but it was like constant throughout the weekend. People coming up to me. I signed one guy's Judgment Dragon, and like I played against a Christia Sworn guy round 2 who is a fan of the channel. And like after our match, we went over to a table. I looked at his deck. I helped him. I gave him advice. Um, After he dropped out of the Time Wizard, Ultimate Time Wizard, he went and played in a pod. He made it all the way to the finals. Just off of like some help that I gave to him, and like that's a really good feeling when you know that you're making a difference. Like you're seeing people get better because of you. Like I've shared my struggles, I've shared my successes, and just to like really see that like in full effect in person, there's not another feeling like it. Like I kept telling myself like all these people have come up to me and told me how much they enjoy what I make, they enjoy my podcast, they enjoy my deck profiles. And it doesn't matter if I go 0-8 this weekend. Like I've already won just by that, just by like making a difference in those people's lives. It is so cool.
Man, that's so awesome to hear. I mean, from where we were back in the day to where we are now,
Yeah.
what would you say to your old self back then? Let's just say 10 years ago. You
10
sit down in
years
front
ago, I would tell myself, so 10 years ago, it'd be 2014. So it'd be like the start of hat format. I would tell myself to throw away the Noble Knight deck, put that down, don't touch it, put it in a frame, put it on the wall, don't touch it. Do not be tempted, and pick a deck that's S tier or A tier, play it, and learn how to actually play Yu-Gi-Oh! And you'll go a long way. And I think that was probably the only advice that I needed. And I probably would have gotten to where I am now a lot sooner. I think that there was just a lot of stuff I just didn't know, that probably a lot of people in our whole community didn't know. And I've covered stuff like that in podcasts and videos before. But if I could go back and give my younger self advice, it would definitely be something like that. Like play one of the best decks, learn how to play Yu-Gi-Oh, not just how to play your deck.
No, I mean I completely agree with that. I think we've all went through that stage in our Yu-Gi-Oh career of where we just wanted to play whatever we play and didn't really care, what tier it was, but still thinking it was an S tier deck. Like, oh, I could
Yes.
make good, or oh, I could make clown control good, or whatever
Yeah.
deck we played back then. I
Yeah,
remember
like
when
I can make clown control good because of this one specific interaction that happens every third like full moon, you know? So
I
like
think
just
we've all,
stuff like that.
I mean, I completely agree with that. I mean, if everybody would take that advice and play the A tier deck, S tier deck for a while, and then get really good, then you can be that guy that plays other stuff like Fish OTK or Clown Control or something. You can get so
Yeah,
good that you win out of interactions or rulings or knowing your stuff. But I mean,
exactly.
that's hard to get there. I mean, that's just not like right off the rip.
You want to know
You
the
know,
best part about, let's see, about four of those people, about the best part about those people that came up and talked to me?
what's
Four
that,
of
man?
them, four of them played Lightsworn because of me.
I know that's got a good feeling. Like
It was a
whenever you see,
crazy feeling, actually.
what does it give you? I guess like whenever you just see stuff like that and people just come up to you and say you're their inspiration, or you're
It
the reason to play this deck.
it's like it makes me really emotional actually because I wanted to be like a Yu-Gi-Oh influencer that was like willing to help people because I remember messaging people way back in the day, like the pro players, right? Like we all know who they are, messaging them and stuff like that and just getting left on red or getting blocked or ignored and whatever. And I always wanted to like have enough of a following to where someone could reach out to me on Facebook or Discord or comments, whatever, and I could actually help them improve. So to see that like come to fruition like that and people actually like respecting me and wanting, I guess, wanting to kind of be like me in a way that just lets me know like I really set out and accomplished the goal that I really wanted initially anyway. And like even if I never top another Ultimate Time Wizard, which is not going to happen, I'm going to win one of these at some point. So you better hide your kids, hide your wife, because Wolf's coming after you. But eventually, I am going to win one of these things. But like if I never topped again by some horrible streak of luck, like I could quit happy just knowing like the difference that I made there. Like one guy came up to me and he told me he watches the channel. He was playing my Christia Sworn list from Richmond, Sasuke Samurai and everything, the exact deck. And he was like, "Man, I went 0 and 5 in the Ultimate Time Wizard." He was just like, "How do you win with this?" And I was like, "Well, it's so crazy that you say that because all of like the first several tournaments I went to, I went 0 and 5. Didn't win. I don't even know if some of those if I even beat one person one time in a game playing Christia Sworn." And I just told them, I was just like, this is a deck to where you really have to learn how to play Yu-Gi-Oh, not just learn how to play the deck. But after you do, you'll noticeably improve. So I was like, and this is like wise words that come from Frazier that he told Justin one time. He said, it's not the deck, it's you. So when I say that to people, I'm always like, it's not the deck, it's you. And that's not a bad thing because you can fix a you problem, but if your deck's not good, you can't fix that. Like there's no amount of cards you can put into Morphtronics to make the deck good. But like if you're playing a deck that's like S tier or A tier, and you're not winning with it, like if you're not winning with Black Wings, it's not the deck, it's you, and you have to remember that. And that's like a hard pill to swallow. It was a hard pill to swallow for me, but once you can swallow it and realize like I have to take accountability for my losses and realize like maybe I didn't get sacked. Maybe I just made a critical misplay earlier in the game. And that's what cost me that entire match. And once you start to think about the game like that, you start to realize, like how you lost and why you lost. And, if you just take accountability, a lot of those times when you really screw up badly, you'll never do it again. Like at Raleigh, I was playing against Value Turbo, had this guy beaten dead to rights. I'm just like, I summon Judgment Dragon, I make Tempest Magician, I attack with both, I burn him for 500. But I stacked Lila to top a deck for Plague Spreader instead of Raikou. And I ended up losing because of it, because I left him at 500. And I had to do like tribute Plague Spreader for Celestia and leave him alive, and he just Brios back both and kills me. So like, that was rough. I definitely beat myself up over it. And maybe there's like the slight chance that like I could ask that guy, hey, I stacked the wrong card, can I take that back? But I didn't want that. Like I don't want to say I wanted to lose, but I'm like, I need to be punished for the misplace so that this never happens again. Because if he just says, yeah, it's fine, I won't learn anything from this. So like I will literally never stack a card from my hand to top a deck that quickly without looking ever again. So I just kept telling people all about like accountability, and I think they really appreciated like the honesty there.
Oh yeah. I mean, so many times you hear people say, "Oh, you drew that one-up card," or "My opponent luck sacked me," or there's always that one player that has so many excuses. Like everything is always somebody else's
That was
fault.
me. That was me, 100%. I thought I was incapable of losing.
And I think we've all been there. I really do. I think we've all, at some point in our Yu-Gi careers, I don't care what anybody says, but we've all been there. And like you said, it's a hard pill to swallow. But once you swallow that pill and realize that there's reasons you lost, even if it's just, minor, I mean, it's the smallest little detail, but there's always something. If you can go back and just watch your gameplay, review your games, take notes, anything. I mean, just remembering your plays and play it back out in your head, you'll always find something. And that's something I've
Absolutely.
my second go around. During my younger career, I was just naive, and I was like that. I mean, I've told my story before of where I was way better when I was younger than I am now. But even then, I was naive and would, if I lost, oh, my opponent they just sacked me. Not a big deal. I'm way better than everybody type of mentality. And it's just not a good mentality to have. But we've
Yeah.
all been there. Whether other people realize it or not, or admit it, we've all done it at some point or another. But I
Yeah.
mean, just repetition, everybody can get better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like a couple of my opponents I played against pointed out like they're like, man, like you do some weird things when you play. Like there were games where like I would set Garoth face down and they wouldn't attack into it because they just read that it's Raikou. And I didn't even have that was like the only card I had towards a Celestia. So like in some ways, like just learning how to bluff with stuff like that. Because I literally won one of my games by setting a Garoth, bluffing Raikou. They didn't attack into it, and I tribute for Celestia, and the game's basically just over. Whereas like if I just normal summon Garoth, they're like, okay, that's a vanilla. Like I'm going to attack into that, I'm going to get rid of it. So it's just little things. And like there's no way for you to learn experience overnight. You have to just play. You have to do a lot of playing. And something that I've recently come around to is like, for a long time I had the attitude like I don't want to play against anyone that's like worse than me. I only want to play against people that are on a different level than me. And I think that is true because I do think that you learn a lot. Like I definitely have to accredit like where I've gotten from like, people on our team, obviously, but people like Raikoko that goes to our locals and GYBU and Sasha and Cody and Adam and Cameron Saunders and like Mitchell Nouse, all these people that like we're lucky enough to go literally to BBG, to locals, to play against these people on the regular, and they're all so good. So it's really nice to be able to sit down and play against them. And, you definitely get better by playing against them. But you also need to play against people that are like of average skill and like worse than you. Because it's like it's an odd dynamic to try to really go over and explain in detail. But like I'll basically sum it up by saying the best players do the safest line, the best play every single time. And the players that are a little worse than you, they'll just do whatever. Like you can't bluff a bad player because they don't know that you're trying to bluff. Like if I set 3 and bluff road, like they're just going to activate heavy because they don't know any better. So definitely playing against people that are like lower skill can definitely help you get better in some ways as well, because you are going to encounter players like that when you go to these tournaments. Like you're going to play against people that aren't quite as good. They're definitely less experienced, but they might just go completely all in, throw their whole hand on the table while you have a set card because they don't even think that it's torrential tribute. And then you lose. You're looking at your set MST that you're trying to bluff as torrential and they just didn't care. So I think that you just need to be well-rounded and just know how to play against like the best players and the worst players.
No, I totally agree with that. Having all kinds of different scenarios come up. I mean, sometimes you just got to be able to read your opponent. Is my opponent good? Sometimes you got to look at the small details.
Yeah.
Whenever it sits down, and I know this is going to sound like bad, but is their deck double sleeved? Are they using high rarity cards? Are they using a high end play mat? Are they using calculators? Usually, when somebody
Yeah.
sits down like that, you can automatically tell, hey, this is a serious player. This is the play style I might need to have.
Yeah, and
Versus,
also too, like another key indicator is like, let's say we're in Raleigh, right? And I ask where you're from, and they say, "Oh, I'm from around the block," right? Like that player could be really good, but it could also just be somebody that hasn't played since 2010. But if we're playing in Indianapolis and someone says, "Oh, I'm from New York, I'm from North Carolina, I'm from Florida," you know that person takes the game seriously to travel that far.
oh yeah, that's some of the things that I always try to pay attention to know if my opponent's going to be good right off the bat.
Yeah,
Um, versus somebody that sits down, with a paper mat or, no mat at all, or, I'm not like pointing anybody out, but, the small
yeah.
details that you can really kind of notice.
Unless
Or,
it's specifically Yi Ching.
yeah, I was thinking about that, plays a
Yi
whole
Ching
common.
Yi Ching is playing with the same sleeves he's played for like 10 years and not using a playmat, and I can't imagine how many people this guy like bluffs into thinking he's terrible at the game, and then he like just demolishes them.
I mean, to me, it's hysterical. I mean, coming in with
Yes,
a
he's
common,
he's playing the mind game all the time.
having like a high rarity extra deck or something, or max rarity.
Yeah,
I mean, stuff like that. It's comical to me. But I mean, back to the point of just having a good read on your opponent. If you're playing
yeah,
somebody that might be skill level and know that they might be unpredictable, they're not going to do the common line like you said. There's all kinds of possibilities and outcome there. So just
yeah,
understanding the on all levels is super key. And like you said,
yeah,
you told me a long time ago, but you can't just test a card one or two times and determine if it's good or bad. 50 repetitions plus, and then you can determine if the card's bad or the deck's bad
yeah.
or what it is.
Yeah, that was a
So,
trap that I fell victim into a long time ago without thinking about it. Was like, I'd think about a card, let's just say Lightning Vortex, right? Like, obviously it's a good card, but we'll just use that as an example. If I play one match and I Lightning Vortex my opponent for game, then I'm just like, oh my god, this card's insane. It's going in my deck. I turn in my deck list. But like, no deck, no card has a 100% win rate unless it's a tier 0 format. And even then, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of variance where, like, if you're the best player, you might win 90% of the games, but there's still 10 that you lose. So, like, you need to be able to, like, collect from a large pool of data to be able to, like, make educated decisions on whether or not you should play a card in your deck. Like, I could probably put literally any card in the game in my deck and win a game with it at some point because of some very niche, like, oh, my opponent was at 200 and I flipped Ceasefire and killed them. Like, Ceasefire is broken, man. I'm playing in my main deck. Every deck I play. But, like, if you play 50 games with that, you might realize, like, oh, I only got to Ceasefire for game 2 times. This card's not good. So that was a trap I fell victim to very early on in my Yu-Gi-Oh! Career, was just thinking that cards were really, really good by just pulling from a very limited pool of data.
and once again, we've all been there. Some of us are still stuck in that cycle, and once we can get out of it, we'll realize that we're the only people that's holding ourselves back.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
you're your worst enemy sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I want to speak lightly here on the top 8 players from Indianapolis. The top 8 was actually completely just stacked. There were so many good players in the top 8. I'm actually going to go through and like give them all an individual shout out. So this is just the standings from day one. This is top 8. This is just first through 8th place. Jason Cottis, who I believe is Dimitri, who won Edison Worlds. I think that's his name. Adam Toshiba, Paul Hobbs, Richard Novak, Fraser Smith, Stephen. I'm not going to try to say his last name. Sorry, Stephen. You're just Stephen. Oscar Zelaya, who is Legacy Retro Formats. And then Stephen Smith. So that was the top 8 of day one. Obviously, Oscar and Fraser end up getting to the finals. Fraser wins the card, and I'm normally not like super hype for anyone winning that's not myself, because like I'm my own biggest fan. But I was definitely super proud of Frazier for winning. I know that's something that he'd been trying to do for a while, and I always have to say, like, without his channel and his podcast specifically, I would probably never have improved at Yu-Gi-Oh, honestly, because that's kind of like he kind of like opened up, like broke down the barrier of like good players making content. And I think he was like the first one to do it. Like, no shots at anyone else, but like once he did it, like a lot of other channels started to kind of like follow in the footsteps and actually try to like help the player base improve and get better as a whole. And I can definitely see like the impact that it's had. So definitely proud of that guy. Congratulations to him yet again. I think I've told him that probably 100 times now, but yeah, it was sick. It was an insane run for sure. Definitely glad to see him get there.
I had a question earlier for you. It's kind of been on the back burner just a little bit. But what do you think about the rise of Machina Turbo?
This
You
is
here to
this is a good
see?
one. So when I first started playing Edison, obviously I knew Machina was a good deck, but a lot of people kind of strayed away from it because they were specifically afraid of Cyber Dragon. And I get that. Like, I understand. As time has went on and Vayu has just become easily the most represented deck in what probably most people would consider to be the best deck, Machina probably has the best matchup against that than any other deck in the format that's not specifically Frog Monarch. Because they summon Greffer, you summon Gearframe, your Gearframe kills their Greffer, they summon Armed Wing, you summon Fortress. So your Fortress is eventually going to run them out of the game, because not only do you kill Armed Wing, when they level up again into Armor Master, all they're doing is crashing. So they're still losing their Armor Master, and they're losing another card. They have to rank up all the way into Silverwind just to be able to kill a Fortress that then just kills their Silverwind. So there are a lot of things that make that matchup heavily in Machina's favor, and I think that we're going to see a lot more people playing Machina as time goes on. And the thing about it too is like the deck is a Hamster Raikou Kaias deck, so like Cyber Dragon, you might only ever get to use Cyber Dragon one time on like a gear frame, and they've already gotten the +1, so it doesn't even matter to them at that point, because then their Fortress is just going to kill your Fortress Dragon, and then you're going to have to kill the Machina Fortress, which is just going to trade back again. So I actually think the deck is like super insane for what it is, and I definitely don't think we've seen the end of it. I think it's only going to continue to be more and more popular.
I completely agree with that, and I think there's actually room for the deck to evolve even more.
I do too.
Cyber Dragon's the death of the deck in some sense, but it also has a pretty rough Blackwing matchup at times.
I can agree with that.
Across the board, its other matchups are really, really good on paper.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's a deck that definitely rewards a good pilot, because something I've talked about very recently is like the power in not attacking. And this is something that took me a long time to really come around to, but like I always go back to like a 3v3 a few months ago I played where I went undefeated and we didn't top because my middle player had a bad day. But I went undefeated, and the best card in my side deck was Thunder King Ryo. And a year prior to that, I talked about how bad Thunder King was, because like I was like, it always gets deprisoned, it always gets mirror forced, it always gets whatever. And at that point, when I summoned Thunder King, I never attacked with the Thunder King. I wait until I put another monster beside it, Soul of Purity and Light, Jane, Lila, whatever, and I still don't attack with it, because that card is a floodgate. And I think Machina Fortress is the same way. Like, if you don't just run your Fortress into Deprison, into Mirror Force, that card will eventually trade with something, and then you're just going to bring it right back anyway. So I think that the power in just using those cards as floodgate monsters for pressure, like knowing eventually my opponent is going to have to do something to deal with it, or they'll just lose the game, because I always have +1 because they're not killing it. I just think that that's a really good way of going about playing the Machina deck.
no, I completely agree with you. And learning that is actually kind of hard. Like you said, with the whole Thunder King concept of it being a floodgate. Some people just want to
Yeah.
run their floodgate to everything, and they don't realize that, hey, if I just sit on this, I'm pretty much fine until my opponent answers it.
Yeah.
And I mean,
So
it's a
like
hard
the
thing.
Thunder King against the zombie player, he had to synchro to get over it. He had to go into like I think he made Doom Kaiser Dragon, and I finally had to tribute to negate. But he lost his monster and he lost his graveyard plague spreader. And all he did after that was set a goblin zombie. So I was like, this is completely fine. Like now your deck has no win condition.
So I mean, it's a hard thing to learn, but I mean, once you master it, and once you learn it, I mean, it really makes you a better player, like you said.
Yeah.
I,
Goes back
I
to
really,
repetition yet again.
I think that deck's going to go places. At the beginning of the year, I said that, or my prediction was that zombies was going to be like the breakout deck of the year, and I really stood by that until recently. But I really think Machina Turbo is going to be that deck that just it breaks out.
I
I
think
don't
so
think
as
it's
well.
S tier status, but I think it's going to be an A plus deck or the best A deck there is.
Yeah.
I, I
Yeah.
still
I
think.
also think that this is kind of going off on like a tangent here. I think that Dragon Turbo has heavily fallen out of favor. And I think that a lot of it is people have kind of realized the deck is not as good in person as it is on Dueling Book.
I completely. That deck was hyped. I remember people were going crazy. But you go to these events and it's doing nothing for life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, yeah, it tops all these online tournaments. It might top eight a RBT or, some 2K, 5K online tournament or something. But in real life, it's not getting it done.
No, it's also very risky when you go to something like if you fly across the country to play an Ultimate Time Wizard and you play Dragon Turbo, you're really just letting your tournament experience just come down to complete variance and chance. Like because you might steamroll through everyone like it's nothing, or you might be, X3 sitting back at the hotel room round 3 wondering where it all went wrong.
Yeah.
So
No,
I don't think that deck is real in person. I know people have varying opinions on that, but I do think the deck gets helped out by the dueling book algorithm because you get future fusion and card destruction significantly more often. I think the deck is a threat online specifically, but I don't think it's anywhere near as good in person.
I completely agree with that. And I think that also has the surge in value turbo has a big reason for that too, I think. Value Turbo is just insane against Dragon Turbo, and I don't think a lot of people realize it, but the deck just struggles with a set Raikou and a set Bottomless or something. Like, it's literally just so hard for Dragon Turbo to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
I
definitely
mean,
not the best at dealing with set monsters. They really have to go out of their way into like Black Rose or Brio to clear them. And if they're having to do that, then normally they're not killing you.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I think the deck's just going to continue to free fall, and I think other decks are going to, like, rise up like we're seeing. Like, I really think that GB's surging pretty good.
Yeah.
They just got placed at I think it was a 2K or something like that. First and third place.
Yeah, it also topped Indianapolis. I think that guy finished 4th place.
Yeah. So, I think the deck's kind of going places. We're going to see the hype on that deck kind of top out somewhere. I don't think the ceiling's as high as Machina is, but I still think that, Gladiator Beast is a really good deck. And I think it's kind of
Yeah.
slept on it because mid to late game, that deck just keeps getting better and better. And it can actually be really scary at times on how good that deck can get.
Yeah, we've like basically everyone has put down Hero Beat. I actually would argue like regular Hero Beat is almost like unplayable now. It's just way too slow. It doesn't do nearly enough. And Diva Hero Beat is like quickly just um, falling off as well, flatlining off. And that could be another reason, Dragon Turbo is not doing as well because Hero Beat was kind of a free win for Dragon Turbo, and Gladiator Beast have kind of taken Hero Beat's place in the meta, and that's one of Dragon Turbo's worst matchups is Gladiator Beast. So it's like everything just creates like this snowball effect where things like endlessly kind of rotate in and out. But the meta that we're in right now, I think it's probably here to stay for a while.
I agree with that. I can't remember what YouTube channel it was, but back in 2023, they had done a little video where they showed like the most top from each deck, and I'm pretty sure like Hero Beat slash Diva Beat was number one. Like,
Yeah,
it
it
didn't,
had the most representation in the first like season of War League of any deck, like the most, like the highest win rate, highest representation.
and it was just crazy to me because like the video went on to explain like it had the most tops, but it didn't win like a big tournament the whole year. Like it didn't win like an RBT or a YCS or
Yeah,
anything like that. Doing like really good in War League, like you said, and other like online tournaments. But as far as like in real life, it wasn't winning anything. So to go from that to where we are now with Hero Beat, the last few times I went to a YCS, I haven't even played, which is just
yeah,
so great.
yeah. I didn't expect to play against Hero Beat, to be honest with you. And I'll say too, because we're at the hour mark now, but that's a matchup I do plan on practicing more because it seems like most of the time I do end up losing to it when I do have to play against it, and I think it's because I'm just not well versed in the Hero Beat matchup. And a lot of Lightsworn players just flat out refuse to play against Glad Beast. Like a lot of them in the Discord are like, "Oh, I'm not going to play against the matchup. It's 90-10, blah blah blah." And obviously, it's not a good matchup. I don't sit down with Lightsworn against GBs and say, "Oh boy, I'm so excited. This is free." But I do think that if you just avoid the matchup, you're never going to learn like how to play against the deck to give yourself the best chance of winning.
No, I agree with that. I mean, you can't just stay away from stuff because you think it's an automatic loss. How are you ever going to get better? And that's
Yeah,
with
like you
anything.
have to know like there are ways Lightsworn can beat Gladiator Beast, and I'll say like it's definitely in their favor. Like you'd be crazy to say it's not in Gladiator Beast's favor, but like there are just principles when you play against that deck, and I learn more every time I play against it with Lightsworn. What you have to do, when and where. It's a very technical matchup where you can win, but you just have to play very, very perfectly. And as always, like with Yu-Gi-Oh! And kind of Lightsworn too, but Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, you have to have like a little bit of luck to win.
No, I completely agree with that. I had one more question with you, and we can close it out. But who is the best Edison player right now?
Oh gosh. That's such a difficult question to answer because all of like I guess like the best quote unquote Edison players, they're just all so good. It's just hard to like pick one and put them like at the very top of the pyramid. Um,
Give
you
me
have
fire.
people. What's that?
I'm sorry. Give me fire one off, and if you tell me if you
Sure,
agree or not.
sure. Yeah,
If I had to pick one right now on the spot, this is no disrespect to any of the top players out there because there is a ton, but I think it goes to Oscar. And the
yeah,
reason I say that is because he's come the closest to anybody out of winning two YCSs and also defending his crown. I
yeah,
mean, to win
yeah. He
Indy last,
almost won two indies in a row, which is crazy.
it's insane. I mean, I love their channel and watch it, religiously every day. Um, and their player base is just insane. So many good in their local. What he
Yeah,
did in a closed format where everybody knows the format, it's just insane. And I'm not trying to take away from any of the other players, but I really think right now Oscar is the GOAT of Edison.
yeah, yeah. I was actually writing down a few here that you were talking about when you were talking, but like these are like in no particular order. Like these are the people I feel like are kind of like around like the top right now, and it's Eric Shin, who won RBT Orlando and then went and won YCS Raleigh. James Ark, Oscar, and Frazier. Those are the ones that I would put like at the top right now. Like just thinking off the top of my head without doing like any research, looking at numbers. Just off the top of my head, I think that those are like the four best. I couldn't even think of a fifth. Obviously, there's a fifth in there somewhere, but just going off of like wins, tops, just generally like how they're performing in the game, I would put those at the top. And also I put myself at the top because I'm my own biggest fan.
Hey, you got to. You can't believe
Even though I'm
it.
probably somewhere near the bottom, but
No. Nah, man.
But yeah, I think it's definitely one of them, and it's probably like a five-way tie until like one of them really like starts just winning like every event, which would still be cool to see. Like it would definitely be cool to be like that guy's the best Edison player. A true hero is probably the fifth one. I was sitting here trying to think of a fifth one. It's probably Cairo.
No, I would agree with that. I think whoever gets to like 3 big tournament wins could probably take that number 1 spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're working for it, like there's an episode that Fraser has of his podcast. I don't know when it'll come out to like the actual public. He has it on his Patreon. I think maybe you get them a week early. But he talks about how like at Nationals last year, he lost to Vayu Turbo in the semifinals. Yeah, I think it was the semifinals against Matt Kalenda, the eventual winner. And about how he just like grinded the Vayu Turbo matchup with Eurofrogs. And he beat 4 out of the 5 Vayu players he played against Indianapolis. And the one guy that he lost to, I heard it was like some kind of like perfect storm thing, like dark armed, like burial or something like that, like those 2 1-ofs. So it's really cool to see, like, even like who we consider like the best players, like they're still playing and they're still getting better. So I think that's really cool to see.
And that says a lot about the format right there. Just having a closed format, keep improving at it, and you don't have to worry about outside variables. It's so nice.
Yeah, I think Eric Shin Sackphase, I think he said his first Ultimate Time Wizard was Nats last year at Raleigh. And I think he went like, he said he ended up dropping out, but then that guy wins Orlando and Raleigh. So it's like all these players just, it's nice to know that they kind of like all started it the same way, so like if they can get there with hard work, like you can get there too. I think it's definitely inspiring.
So, I mean, that's got to be, make other players feel good. To know that it can just be anybody. Put the work in for it. You got to really want it. You got to try. And you got to get out
it makes you feel like it makes you feel like you can see the finish line. Like you can actually get there. Like you might be miles from the finish line, but like you will get there eventually if you just keep trying and you keep improving and you take accountability.
And I mean, that's one of the many benefits of a closed format. Once again, I mean, just knowing that it's not going to change, that if you just keep going away, you can get better than the next person and you take it one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid of the competition. Like I said, the Ultimate Time Wizards, like 90% of the players are like above average skill and higher. So like it might take you a while of playing against like good players to get there, but if you don't give up and you keep trying, you will get there eventually. So shout outs to everyone that I talked to at Indy, anyone that came up to me and said they were a fan of the channel, a fan of the podcast, came up to me and talked to me, asked me for advice, whatever, just initiate a conversation. I love all you guys. I wish I could name you off all by name. I took pictures with a lot of them, but I'm terrible with names. But there were several of them, and they were all super cool. And, that was just, like I said earlier, that was just a crazy feeling, a crazy experience just to see the difference I've made for those people. And, I hope to keep getting bigger as a channel and getting more reach and kind of helping other people get there as well in the future.
Heck yeah, man. It's been a episode, and just can't wait for the next one, man. Ready for the next YCS announced. Had high hopes each, but unfortunately that was a hoax. I'm just excited to see where we're going to go with this. Hoping it's somewhere close. I'm pretty sure today that Orlando got announced, but that's in February of next year, unfortunately. So, hopefully,
a little ways out.
Yeah, I was highly surprised they announced that, but not the next one in August.
Yeah, me too. Probably still working on it.
Yeah, but hopefully somewhere on the East Coast. That would be really nice.
Yeah, it would definitely be nice. I wouldn't mind, like, this won't happen because they've already done it. But even if it was back in Indy, like when I say it was the nicest Yu-Gi-Oh trip, it was just so nice. Such a smooth ride all the way there. Everything was nice. The convention center was nice. The hotel was nice. The layout in like the convention center for the tournament was perfect. It was literally perfect. Like if you remember at Raleigh, they put the vendors on the same wall as the check-in line for the main event. And I was like, this is a nightmare. I was like, literally, who came up with this layout? Because like on the other side of the building, there was no one. So I was like, the vendors should have been there, because like you couldn't get to the vendors because of the line. And at this one, they had like the check-in line all the way at one end of the building, and the vendors were like in front of the doors as soon as you walk in. So whoever designed this layout, like, you let this guy do it all, because this guy's got it down pat. He knows what he's doing. Everything was perfect. So yeah, definitely a big fan of Indianapolis.
If you're trying to grow the community, I don't see anything wrong with having another one at Indianapolis again, because I'm pretty sure I heard the first YCS there last year was like 160 people or something like that.
Yeah.
Don't. That's just a number I've seen thrown around, and then like I said, this time I've seen 187, 197. So 2 of the higher turnouts for a YCS for a Time Wizard event. I don't see anything wrong in that. If you're trying to grow the community, obviously you want to go to the places that get the most people, or the most people are willing to travel.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I mean, just some things that Konami needs to think about in terms of, growing the player base.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I guess we'll see what ends up happening in the future. Hopefully they keep it going, keep it growing, and they continue to keep improving on how everything's ran.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree.
All right, guys. Well, I guess that's all for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. This is Mike and Austin signing out. Until the next one.